our top story. Just moments from now, NATO members are going to hold a crucial meeting. The leaders will gather to examine the missile strikes on Poland. Now, according to news agency the Associated Press, the blast in Poland was caused by a missile fired by Ukrainian forces. But the missile used was Russian-made. These are according to initial findings. Now, the Russian mission to the United Nations has said the incident attempts to provoke a direct military clash between NATO and Moscow. The Kremlin had already denied its involvement in this entire incident. Ukraine, on the other hand, has refuted the allegations that Ukrainian forces were involved in this missile attack. The allegations now are, in fact, becoming hugely controversial. Ukrainian President Zelensky has placed the blame squarely at the doorstep of Russia. He has said an attack on security in the Euro-Atlantic is a significant escalation. This comes as Polish officials say they're likely to request consultations under NATO's Article 4. Also, they plan to raise the issue at the United Nations Security Council.
Prowadzimy analizy i konsultacje z naszymi sojusznikami w zakresie potencjalnego użycia artykułu 4 Traktatu Waszyngtońskiego, czyli artykułu, który uruchamia konsultacje w ramach Paktu Północnoatlantyckiego. Weryfikujemy przesłanki, które mogą służyć do tego, aby ten artykuł 4 został użyty.
France has urged utmost caution on the origin of the Poland strike. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has expressed solidarity with Poland. US President Joe Biden, meanwhile, has called an emergency meeting with G7 leaders. That, in fact, was held earlier in Bali on the sidelines of the G20 summit. And in the joint statement, the G7 leaders offered their full support and assistance to Poland in the ongoing investigation.
There is preliminary information that contests that. I don't want to say that till we completely investigate, but it's unlikely in the lines of the trajectory that it was fired from Russia. But we'll see. We'll probably have a meeting as we have.
Now, the missiles landed in a southeastern village in Poland, just about 6.5 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Local media reports suggest the strike also hit a grain drying facility. Why this matters is because Poland is a member of NATO, which is the defense military alliance of 30 countries, which has explicitly backed Ukraine in the ongoing war. Now, the bloc's policy of attack on one is an attack on all might be applicable here. For more on this story, we're now joined by Sergei Samleny, a director at the European Resilience Initiative Center. Thank you very much, Mr. Samleny, for speaking to WION. First things first, there is no doubt that this incident, the missile strike on Poland, is being viewed very seriously because there are real fears that there could be an escalation of tensions between NATO and Moscow. And in fact, Russia has said this is a deliberate provocation. However, what's interesting and significant is that according to an initial assessment made by US officials, this missile was fired not by the Russians, but in fact by Ukrainian forces who were trying to deflect an incoming Russian missile. Do you think this really muddies the waters, even as this investigation is underway? How do you look at this incident?
Oh, thank you. First of all, we need to understand that in this conflict, like we already had a lot of cases when Russia claimed that Ukrainians did something terrible, and every time we found out at the end that it was a lie. We remember very good the case with the Malaysian MH17 Boeing shot down by Russian air defense. And we know all the stories that Russians spread. It was like Ukrainian air defense, Ukrainian fighter jet, terrorist planted bomb device on board, etc. It was all lie. They want to distort our discussion. They want to infect our discussion with all possible versions, just to slow down our investigation and make us feel uncertain and stop our response. So now the question is, like, can it be S-300 air defense missile? Maybe, but even it was like an S-300 air defense missile, it could be most probably the Russian one. Let me try to explain. Ukrainians have only S-300 air defense missiles, which set for destruction of air targets. That means that these missiles, when this missile understands that it goes off course and it's about to hit the ground, it self-destructs, it explodes in the air without causing harm, because it's a self-destruction safety mechanism. In contrary, the Russians and Belarusians, they have manipulated their missiles, they have modified them to let them hit ground targets. They don't have this self-destruction mechanism. They hit ground targets and they use them against Ukrainian forces. And the distance between the explosion site and Belarus is exactly the distance which can be flown by a Belarusian or Russian surface-to-surface S-300 missile, which, I repeat, initially was built to hit the planes, and both countries, Ukraine and Russia, have them. So for Russians, it was a very easy way to hit Poland with this missile set for surface-to-surface action, and then blame Ukrainians because, like, okay, both countries have the missiles, but we have no recorded case of Ukrainian air defense missiles malfunctioned so badly that it went off course and hit the ground and exploded. And I don't have reasons to believe that, as a first primary version, that in this very case, we see the first of this case and the NATO country is being hit.
All right. Now, I understand the point that you're making about how you believe that Russia has repeatedly lied and is here unfairly trying to blame this missile strike on Ukraine. Yes, Ukraine has also denied the allegation. But what's important to understand here is that, yes, even though those missiles, we are told, were Russian-made, it is U.S. officials whose initial assessment seems to be that these may not have been fired by the Russians. These may well have been fired by Ukrainian forces to, in fact, stop an incoming Russian missile. But that apart, given that NATO is going to hold an emergency meeting later today to discuss this very important and sensitive issue, and NATO's policy very clearly is an attack on one member is an attack on all, Poland being a member of the NATO alliance, how serious an escalation do you think this incident could prove to be? Let me quote to you former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, who has said that this missile strike on Polish territory shows that the West is moving closer to World War III.
Well, I think the NATO will try to do everything possible now to slow it down. Because, look, it is actually it fits very into all the Russian playbooks. Like they want to provoke you, they want to test the limits, but at the same time, they want to give you an opportunity to de-escalate. So at the end of the day, the Russians have more ground control than we on informational space. I think that the NATO will investigate it. And of course, the Poles will say, yeah, we need protection. I think the Article 5 self-defense will not be triggered. They will trigger if Article 4 is just a consultation for security reasons, means nothing, actually. And I think that they will try to downplay it as long as possible to prevent the escalation, which could after be identified as a mistake. So they want to exclude all the versions that it was not Ukrainian missile, that it was a Russian one. Only if they exclude Ukrainian missile completely, they will say, okay, Russians hit our territory, but was it intentional? And then you cannot prove it because it's close to Ukrainian border. Even if in, let me say, 1 month, we'll have solid facts that it was a Russian S-300 missile, then we will never be able to prove during this war that it was an intentional strike, because Russians will go into full denial mode and say, no, it was a mistake. like it was jammed by NATO, like it was like hit by Ukrainians and set of course, etc. So at the end, we will stay with nothing because the casualties on the Polish side are terrible from the perspective of human life, but absolutely like not important from the perspective of military strategists who will not risk putting their country into war because of 2 people killed. So after all, I don't think it will change anything. Like when MH17 was shut down, many Ukrainian voices said this will be a game changer. The West will see how dangerous is Russia. They will help us now. They will send weapons. They will punish Russia. Nothing happened.
Okay.
Like 300 people were killed. 200 of them, over 200, were EU nationals. It was a clear civilian target hit by Russian missile, and nothing happened.
Okay.
Like Russia was sanctioned very, very easily, but no military support. I think now will happen the same. This situation will change nothing, but in strategy, it will of course add to the attitude in the West, but it will happen like in months maybe.
But you're saying this will not really have any major repercussions. This will not be a game changer. This is not going to change the course of the Ukraine war. We don't know what exactly happened in Poland. An investigation is still underway, but let's certainly hope that cool heads prevail on all sides, because the last thing that the world needs right now is a further escalation of this war. On that note, Sergei Samlemny, thank you so much for speaking to WION.
Thank you so much.